Hello, I'm Alex Gupta with UATV. Today I'm speaking with Professor Volodymyr Kulikov. He is the project manager of Industrialization and Urban Landscape of the industrial south of the Russian Empire. Hello, Professor Kulikov. Welcome to UATV. Would you be able to explain what the project you're working on, Industrialization and Urban Landscape, what's going on there?
Yes, so this project, I have been working on it for several years, and we started it with Lviv Center for Urban Studies. So the idea was to investigate how this industrialization appeared in art and in photographs, and for this project I visited several Donbas towns in 2013, 2014, like more than 20 museums, and I collected visual sources which represent understanding of people, you know, the role of industrialization in landscape and townscape in the Donbas in general.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
I was going to say that you mentioned that you speak about certain towns, Kharkiv, and a lot of the industrial towns in eastern Ukraine, how they were transformed through industrialization. But you said there was a particularly striking change in the industrial part of eastern Ukraine.
Yep. Well, so my focus, I'm a business historian, and my focus is relationship between business and the society. And when we're talking about this eastern part of Ukraine, which is Donbas, almost all main cities now, they started the history as company towns. And of course, Americans know this history very well, because I think there are many similarities in this respect between that area and the United States. Like, for example, I'm staying now in Hagley Museum in Wilmington. It's DuPont company town, and very close to Pennsylvania. Again, many coal company towns. So in this respect, industrialization was really dramatic for that part of Ukraine. You know that it was a bare step, and then in 10 years after 1870, they had this huge metallurgy plants and quite big towns. Like, for example, Yuzovka, within just 40 years, its population grew to almost 300 times. Yuzovka, which is Donetsk now. So, of course, for that part of Ukraine, these changes were really absolutely dramatic.
What was the significance that foreigners played, foreigner businessmen or business people coming to these towns?
Well, a great question. Most of the, especially big companies, they were founded by foreign entrepreneurs, foreign companies. Like, of course, this case, Yuzovka, Donetsk now, British or Welsh entrepreneur John Hughes. And mostly it was French business and Belgium entrepreneurs, British. Well, Germans were mostly represented by technicians. But it's very interesting that the majority of capital and this entrepreneurial experience, it was brought from abroad. But of course, most of workers and even engineers, and especially in the early 20th century, they were locals, like Russians, Ukrainians, Poles.
For our Ukrainian audience, can you explain what a company town is? I'm American, I understand, but for our audience?
Okay. Again, it's a good question, because literally it's the company it's a town which belongs to the company. So the idea is that you're thinking about, for example, metallurgy or mining enterprise, and you have to move where these coal deposits are. You're going to the Donbas, and it's not a bare step, but of course the density of population is very low. And for digging coal, you need really lots of people, and definitely you don't have this industrial settlement. So what is your solution? Of course, is to establish your own. So, for example, what was done in case of John Hughes, that he established ironworks and coal mining enterprise, and he had to build the settlement for for workers. And except for this operational infrastructure, he had to build everything like dwellings, hospitals, schools. Even police was kept for the cost paid by the company. So it was a town established by the company, but also it gives the extra power to the company over the settlement and over the population. Like, for example, in the United States, you call it signing the yellow dog contract. So you know that if company is not happy with you, they just can say that get out within just 24 hours from your settlement, from your accommodation.
And then how did this reflect on the contemporaries? You mentioned arts, literature, journalism.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it's it's a good question. And a few weeks ago, we had a conference in the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and we were discussing this past and present of company towns in Ukraine and Russia with Professor Stephen Crowley. And actually, we realized that although there were no private companies, for example, in Soviet times, the model of these company towns, it was pretty similar to imperial times. Like, for example, still these directors of ironworks, they were in charge with this social infrastructure, so they could decide who will get their flat, and that they had to deal with these kindergartens and schools, etc. And of course, I think that in 1990s, when again we had this capitalism in Ukraine, we could observe this rebirth of this company town system, when the main enterprise they got control over the community, over the society in this especially small coal towns in the Donbas.
I want to ask you my final question. I want to ask you, how are Ukrainian cities such as Kyiv, Kharkiv, how are they being influenced today? What influences, economically, social, are having an impact on these cities?
Well, of course, Ukraine and Kharkiv and Kyiv, they are not company towns, or they were industrial, especially in the Soviet time. And of course, these challenges, that we are now living in post-industrial society, and we experience the industrialization, they are not as dramatic because the economy is more diversified. But I think that for such company towns as, for example, what we can see here in the United States, in West Virginia or in Pennsylvania, the same way you can see in the Donbas, because if there is one main enterprise and the community depend on it, and if there is problems with this enterprise, it means that that the entire settlement, the entire community is in a big trouble, and it's a global problem. It's not only for the Donbas and that part of Ukraine.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Kulikov. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. I'm Alex Gupta with UATV. I was speaking with Professor Volodymyr Kulikov. He is the project manager of Industrialization and Urban Landscape of the industrial south of the Russian Empire. You're watching UATV.